I actually just played this the other day. I played some of this the other day because they announced this the day before it released.
Oh, good job.
Good job for Tango.
But if you're doing something that's more linear, then you can present lore a different way.
Okay.
Like maybe diary entries along the way that are in locations you have to stop at.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're doing like games like World of Warcraft, for instance, the lore is kind of just set dressing at that point, and that can be okay too.
That doesn't make much sense. I have the abilities at my fingertips to do that, and then they said, well, actually, you're just not going to use them this time until I think that it's necessary for protocol. Alex, do you know what the lore of Total Pebble Knockdown is?
Once upon a time, there was a pebble, and it knocked down a field of horses.
I'm already bored. Never mind, let's not go there. But what really matters is that we're here now, and oh, hello. Welcome once again to Total Pebble Knockdown, lore withstanding. My name is Nathan.
And I am Alex.
And on this show, we might delve very deep into the lore. You see what I did there?
I do, but everyone listening didn't, so it's fine.
That's right, you'd have to go on a real long lore dump for that. Don't worry about it, we'll explain later. First up, we were doing a weekly muse not too long ago, last week at some point. They did an Xbox/Bethesda developer direct.
Oh, good, Starfield.
No Starfield, I'm sorry to
tell you.
good.
Elder Scrolls 6.
Also not in that, no.
Alright, so useless already, but continue, please tell me more.
Okay, certainly. Well, what they did is they showed off some of the games that are going to be coming out in more the 6-month period, rather than the 16-year period, which is probably when we'll see those two games.
That sounds like it'll still be out before Star Citizen, so we're probably on a good date.
You know what? They're doing good progress if that's the case. And hey, with the smaller budget. Anyway, so I wanted to tell you about what the games were that were on that, and what they announced, so that you can get excited, or not. First one, though, you might care about, called Minecraft Legends from Mojang.
I've seen a little bit about that, only because it's on the Minecraft launcher. I don't really know what genre it's supposed to be.
The majority of it looks like it's going to be a PvP, like a base building game, where you can attack an enemy base. So you can, you player versus player, you build your castles up, and then you reinforce them, and you can go out into the world, you can get different mobs, and then you can have the mobs go and attack your enemy bases.
Kind of looked more like a third isometric.
A little bit, yeah, it's more top-down, which is fine. I mean, you can see more of the world that way. There are also the little moblins are like their own thing. They attack randomly during the game. So that's interesting. And you can still like get on mounts and stuff, and you can technically explore, you can scout enemy bases and everything like that. It feels like the kind of thing that they're going to try to use as like an esports kind of title, where they can where you can have different players try to figure out the quickest, most efficient way to build the bases and then attack your enemies. It feels like it's made for that. Like they're going to have more streams about people fighting each other in the Minecraft setting.
Do you know if they're going to be like timed PvP match things? Or?
I didn't see anything about time. I think that you can be in there as long as you want.
Well, that's weird, because then what I do is I make a clan or a guild and go, hey, we're the Builders Guild of this area, and like we're gonna just build this giant freaking fortress, and everyone's gonna be over here, and it's gonna be like we're just gonna have 20 people online at all times. Man the catapults, everybody!
Right. Hey, we gotta take the servers off for periods of time because Alex went and tried to break our game. And
yeah, that's literally, I feel like, what people do. It's like, hey, we're gonna get a group of us together that are all gonna team up.
Right.
We're gonna build a fortress and let's keep building more layers to this fortress. And like, you know how castles had the castle, then the outer walls,
Oh,
Or
yeah.
the inner walls, outer walls, and then the moat, and then another set of walls around the town.
Oh, yeah. And there's going to be traps, there's going to be moats and all that stuff, so you can do all of that in the game. They didn't really mention much about, like, any kind of single-player experience because they were focused very heavily on what they were going to do for the player-versus-player experience, so I'm going to take it that is the primary experience they're going for. Everybody was talking about, like, their strategies. Oh, this is how I build my castle. All of the devs were talking about that. So I'm going to guess that that's very heavy in what they're promoting. And frankly, it doesn't interest me. I don't usually play games that are like that. I don't do PvP as a general rule, so it doesn't really interest me. But when I was watching it, I kept thinking to myself that this felt like the kind of thing that you would totally see them try to turn into an esport, or more that it could be geared towards Twitch streamers and the like that go on with other Twitch streamers and do like a player versus player, and everybody can come and watch what they do to make wacky things.
I feel like YouTube videos and Twitch streamers maybe, but maybe not an esport.
We'll see.
Everyone's trying to get that esport, hot tub money.
It's... the thing about it is those esports competitions do bring in a lot of cash. They mentioned Forza Motorsport. No number after this one.
Didn't they just release 5?
That was Horizon. Forza Horizon. This is just Forza Motorsport.
So this one's just a racing game?
This is just the racing game. Yeah.
Oh, see, the exploration version sounds more fun.
It is. So I don't really care much about it. When they didn't have Horizon in the name, I instantly knew, well, I'm not going to care about this. But at any rate, it's Turn 10 Studios. Some of the highlights that they were talking about for Forza Motorsport is the realistic paint reflection and dirt accumulation on the vehicles, so...
Wow, that's exciting.
I'm very excited. I'm super excited. Like, to their credit, the graphics on it look photorealistic. Like, the cars... If you just showed the cars in the game to, like, your average person, they'd think that they were the real car.
That's great.
That's great.
Good for it. I like my Gran Turismo 7, and the car's looking pretty nice, too. But
yeah, they certainly do. Yeah, and frankly, when it comes to Forza, if it isn't the Horizon series, I have a tendency not to care that much about it, because Forza Horizon is an awesome series, and if you haven't played it, you should totally check it out. You get to just drive all over the damn countryside and just smash around through brush, and it's much more of an arcade style. What they do with Forza Motorsport is much more about doing a realistic driving simulation. So, yeah. Now the next one was Hi-Fi Rush from Tango Gameworks. So this is actually under... Well, good news. I actually just played this the other day. I played some of this the other day because they announced this the day before it released.
Oh, good job.
Good job for Tango. It is a comic book style rhythm game.
I'm interested already.
You're uninterested already. If you wanted to see anything that is impressive about it, from what I could tell immediately upon entering, because it does grab you immediately. The art style is strikingly good for what it is. Like, it's just fascinatingly good. It looks like a living comic book with really fluid animation and really great character design. And the thing that's interesting about it is that the entire world moves to a beat, and the beat is attached to the music that's playing. So, you get into a pattern where all the attacks, including yours, are timed to a beat, and you have to get used to your light and heavy attacks being timed on those beats. You will always attack on the beat, but you get extra damage if you actually do it correctly with the rhythm for your heavy and your light attacks.
So what you're saying is the 4 years of chorus and music theory class I took will come in handy. It
will. It absolutely will. They do go through tutorials where they kind of get you used to the beat structure and how your heavy attacks land.
You just gotta play with a metronome.
There is a little assist at the bottom that you can put on that will show you the beats as they're going through the world. The whole world itself, too, anything that moves basically moves to a timed beat, including platforms that come in and out. I thought it had a lot of potential. At first, I thought that it was going to be like Jet Set Radio Future, and I was very excited. But it's actually like a level-by-level sort of game structure where you get more linear. But the idea behind it of the like that beat structure and you trying to be like this aspiring rock star who ends up with like an iPod in his chest is kind of neat. And a robot arm and RoboCat. You know, hey, there's good stuff in that. But yeah, no, art style, I was very impressed by. Anyway, they announced that literally the day before and said, yeah, it's coming to Game Pass and going to be available on Steam and everything, like, tonight. So, and it's like, well, that's a fun surprise for everybody.
Good news, everybody. Here it is.
Also, I thought was very interesting is that they had the head of, like, the Tango GameWorks studio, and he was saying that, like, you know, this is going to be a little different than our normal stuff, because you probably associate us with horror games like Evil Within or Ghostwire Tokyo, which is what they usually make, and it's like, yeah, this is not that. This is very, very different. So good for them, getting out of their comfort zone. Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, yes, yep.
Is a game that already exists.
New expansion for it, I think.
Yes. So ZeniMax announced that there is the Necrom update.
Oh boy, necromancers.
Yeah, there's the Arcanist class that's coming into it, so you get, like, arcane magic and all of that, and this one is going to be taking place in a new area for ESO. It's going to be the Telvanni province of Eastern Morrowind, because we always want more Morrowind involved in this.
It's true.
Yes, you certainly do. There was a discussion that they were talking about having, like, all of the updates playable for a little while for new players, so that's probably good because there's been like 20 content updates, and there's a ton of different areas for you to explore. I played a little bit of Elder Scrolls Online many years ago. I think I was impressed with the size and scope of it, but it wasn't the Elder Scrolls experience that I wanted, so I didn't keep playing.
I don't know if I've tried Elder Scrolls Online. I tried Final Fantasy XIV Online for a little bit.
Yeah.
Couldn't get into it.
You know, it's not bad, and I'm sure that since I played it, it's gotten better. I think that the one thing that I really missed is that, for me, Elder Scrolls is such a good single-player experience, where it really feels like the stuff that you do in the world matters, and what happens with an MMO is that it can't, like, that's always been a problem with anything that's like an online experience, is that they have to have some level of static nature to the world so that everyone can experience it.
Yeah.
They did do a little bit of work on that. There are some areas where you can make choices and it will be different for you than it would be for somebody else that made different choices, but
yeah,
still wasn't really that experience. But anytime you can go back to Morrowind, that does pique my interest a little bit. Finally, from Arcane Austin, which immediately gets my ears perked up, is Redfall. And Redfall is going to be a mission-based vampire shooting game, and it's going to be in the same vein as their other games like Dishonored or Prey, which is to say they're going to be like those immersive sim, that kind of thing, where you can go through different missions in a variety of different ways, and you can address situations in different ways, and there's a bunch of vampires that are trying to kill you.
Is that one cel-shaded?
No, this one is not cel-shaded.
I think I've seen that. Is it the one that has, like, the kooky cast of characters?
There is a kooky cast of characters.
Okay. I think I've seen something about that one.
Yeah, the one gameplay thing that they showed off is one of the characters that has, like, a little robo-dog that they can use to distract some of the vampires in one of the levels. But there's going to be main missions and sub-missions, and you can play either single-player or you can play with up to, like, I think a 4-player multiplayer experience. So can't tell you that it's quite as exciting as some of the other things I've seen from Arcane, but I've usually been impressed with their stuff. I don't know if you've played any of their titles before. If you ever get around to playing Prey, because I think that was free on Epic at one point, the new one was Arcane.
Gotcha.
They did the whole Dishonored series, and then they also did Deathloop more recently, which I tried, and if there was anything that was going to make me a little wary to do Redfall, it was probably trying to play Deathloop. So, yeah. Anyway, but Redfall looks interesting. I'll try it when it comes out, but that's not till May. That was their developer direct. Just going over those.
Sounds pretty uneventful, honestly.
For most people that we usually talk to, like for the kind of games that we enjoy, there's not a ton of meat on the bones there. But I can tell you that I think some people are going to be very impressed with Hi-Fi Rush, and Redfall is the kind of game that I will probably play when it comes out. So, there was something for everybody. If you like racing games, if you like Minecraft for reasons, if you, there's something in there for everybody to enjoy. But I guess I would be interested to know, anyone who's listening, if any one of those titles made you intrigued, or if you had a preference, something that made you excited from that direct, or if it seemed like a really bad idea. And also if you like the format. So Alex, you don't remember what the lore of Total Pebble Knockdown is?
I didn't think we established lore aside from that one time that you thought a total party kill was a total pebble lockdown.
Oh, so you do know the entire lore. Okay, good.
Yep.
Great. So recently on this show, we had talked about the problem with lore dumps. You had made mention of a lot of these long exposition pieces that go into establishing the lore of the world that has a tendency to take you out of the experience. It ruins pacing. We thought that, under the advice of Crave, that we should talk a little bit about the lore dumps that are good, the ones that are more integral or important to the game itself, and how they introduce those. The one that she mentioned specifically was about Outer Wilds.
Yes.
Okay.
We have been watching a YouTuber do a Let's Play, as you will, of the Outer Wilds. And I know you've played a bit of it yourself. Mm-hmm. I haven't played it, but the entire thing is pretty much, you're trying to solve this mystery of what's going on. And you get all the lore that kind of informs, it's not just lore.
Mm-hmm.
It does tell a bit of story and background, but also tells you reasons that things are the way they are, and points you in directions on where to go and what to do to, figure out these puzzles and these mystery bits, Right. So the structure of Outer Wilds, from what I can remember, is that your entire solar system is on a 24-minute time loop. Mm-hmm.
What you need to do in that 24 minutes is explore this clockwork world that is doomed to keep repeating the heat death of the entire system. In that, you have a bunch of different planets that you can explore, and you basically need to work out what happened that led to this so that you can fix it.
I don't know if you do fix it at the end. I'm assuming you get to. Maybe. Who knows? I haven't gotten there yet. No spoilers here.
I mean, it'd be kind of odd if that wasn't the point, but I think it's either that you are able to stop the loops, or that you're able to stop the catastrophe that causes the loops, but one of those two things. The key here is that the stuff that you actually do in the world does not hold when you start the loop over again.
Right.
But what you learn about the lore, all of your notes that you take, that information is stored.
Yeah,
so
your ship's log will be updated.
Right. You have all of that information, and you can utilize that information in the future to do things. And you can take that information and hopefully use it as clues to solve the various puzzles that are around the universe. And so hopefully, if you can get enough of that, you're able to do everything that you need to do on each piece of this solar system in the 24-minute period in order to solve the puzzle. You could technically solve that problem too by just trial and erroring your way through it and just
Maybe
muddling
I
through.
don't know, honestly, because I feel like the lore that they give you and the writings that they provide you, which are all the writings of these the ancient aliens, as it were, that aren't there, and it's just our writings from what's happened, and you're kind of doing like space archaeology.
Yes.
You're checking out all these writings, and like you're learning stuff about these people, but also the past of your solar system and what happened, and how to get around, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
There is one part, I think if you go to the gas giant, not even a gas giant, it's a water world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Deep.
Yeah, the one where you have the giant anglerfish that keeps eating you?
Oh, no, that's the Dark Bramble.
That's the Dark Bramble, yeah.
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 That one was fun. That one's got pocket dimensions upon pocket dimensions.
Yeah, I didn't get to that part, but I hear it was fun. I mostly just ended up out of my ship, and then the giant anglerfish came and ate me. So,
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, they do.
The ocean planet.
Oh, yeah, with the storms that are constantly going around. Yep.
The tornadoes.
Yep.
Mild spoiler for a couple-year-old game now.
It's a while, yeah.
That one is, there's like 5 cyclones going around, twisters going around. If you fly into it, they toss you up out of the atmosphere. Through the writings, you learn something, and through going to one of the places there, you learn that 4 of these are rotating clockwise, and the 5th one is rotating counterclockwise. And you can use the counterclockwise one to get pushed down underneath the current that is blocking you from getting to the planet's core.
Oh, okay.
Which, without writing, like without that bit of information, you could still do it.
Yeah,
but it would require a lot of trial and error.
Right, you'd have to be incredibly observant to happen to notice that was the case. Like, you'd stare at that for a little bit and just try to figure that out. The written logs are integral to the experience in general, but also to help you through the game.
Another example of learning things through the writing is, did you ever observe the quantum moon?
No.
So there's a quantum moon.
Okay.
It appears around one of 5 locations and a mystery 6th location in the game. It's only there when you observe it, and when you look away and turn back, it's no longer there.
Oh, okay.
It moves somewhere else, and you can spot it then. But there's a place that teaches you a bit about the quantum stuff. Did you see the quantum shards at all?
Maybe? I don't really remember.
There are these rocks, and if you look away from them, they move. Right?
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
So one of the things that they teach you there is that if you're standing on it, you can transport.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So what you do is you stand on it if you're in like a cavern, and you have to like turn your flashlight off so you're in darkness, and when you turn the light back on, you're somewhere else.
Oh, okay, I think I did do that part. Yeah.
And then the quantum moon, one of the things they teach you when you're learning about the quantum stuff is that taking a picture of something preserves it being looked at. An image of a quantum object is just like looking at a quantum object, which is really neat. So, like, if you take a picture of the quantum moon, it'll stay and you can land on it.
Sure.
But these are things that you would have to try and think about trying and not understand that the game is going to let you get away with this. But with the writing there, it's like you're going through the logs of these, these long dead aliens who have already done this and figured this out. So you're sifting through their research notes and going, oh shit, this is how you do that? Okay. And it makes it so that organic storytelling of the lore being everything about this game becomes fundamental to learning how to do this game in a way that makes sense and is fun and interesting and just like a natural progression of exploration.
Sure. To a lesser degree, I have seen a lot of places where they'll do audio logs or notes that will have codes to doors or something like that you might need to progress, or sometimes even passphrases that otherwise you would not be able to get to the next part with. There are also some times where you will have to observe objects and turn them around in order to discover what's on them. I think Tomb Raider did that. And although I think I did give Morrowind a lot of crap in the last lore dump one that we did, what it did do right was that there are literal directions in the logs that you have that may, in that framework, be the only way you can actually find stuff in the game.
Yeah, older games, quest logs didn't have map pings and stuff like they do now, and waypoints.
There were no checkpoints or markers.
Old school World of Warcraft, you had to read the quests to know where the hell you were supposed to go.
Yeah, you gotta actually do the thing. You gotta read the directions to get where you need to go.
Which is fun. It's immersive, and I like it to a point.
Yes.
If that's what I want in a game, but I think definitely where gaming is now, it's like I'd prefer to just like have a waypoint or quest marker or something.
That being said, actually, you know how I mentioned Dishonored in the first segment? Well,
yes.
Dishonored, as an immersive sim, has a multitude of different ways that you can go about dealing with your, target as it is. Now, for every single one of those targets, you can actually take them out directly, or you can find a non-lethal way that's probably a fate worse than death anyway, for the people that you are targeting in each chapter. Now, a lot of the ways that you find out how you can do that is through a lot of these pages. Like there is indeed like a Clockwork World in the second one where the inventor of it has some like scraps around that kind of explain to you the ins and outs of how this place was designed, and more importantly, the machine that you can utilize in order to neutralize him without, having to go and kill him. You learn a lot about the world itself and some of the things that you can do inside of it. Through that exposition, you open up new possibilities for how you're going to do things or how you can accomplish a task by looking through those records. I was gonna spend a little time talking about like the walking sims and the narrative games. The only thing is that a lot of the exposition in those is directly tied to the narrative framework, and you kind of have to go through it in order for the game to progress. But they'll just tell you while you're doing it.
Yeah, it's a little different than like the Outer Wilds, where you're actually just exploring, and the what they're telling you is informing like how you're going to play the game. Right, like so it's less linear in that fashion. It is 100% more an exploration.
Right, because if I were to take a game like Dear Esther, the voiceover parts where you're hearing the notes that were written to Esther do not inform you about how to play the game, because you're always going to be walking in the same direction anyway. The narrative itself is kind of the game, so it doesn't really enhance the experience, it just was the experience to begin with. There are audio logs that I have seen in different games, and usually I can tell if they're going to be any kind of good is if I have to stop and wait to listen to them, because I'm worried that they're going to cut off before another character starts talking. I was just playing a little bit of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and that, like most Borderlands games, has the audio recorders that are around, and some of them are kind of funny. Some of them are kind of witty or whatever in the dungeons that might inform some of the characters that you meet. And I started listening to one, and I'm just kind of going about my little quest, and it cuts off right before the end because one of the characters chimes in to tell me that I'm doing a really good job or something. It's
yeah, thanks for that voice bark. I was listening to something.
I've started to realize, especially in modern games, that you have to be careful of how far in one direction you go, because you're probably going to trigger somebody else talking in your ear, which just completely overrides the audio logs. Please make sure to keep a backup of those logs if I ever needed to talk to them. I remember in Fallout, where, you would actually get the audio logs and you could go back into your notes and you could listen to them while you're actually going around the world in the places where people were not going to run up to you and say, hey, I got a quest for you. What do you think is the best way to integrate your lore into the gameplay of a game?
I think it would really depend on what your game is focused on. If you're doing a full-on exploration and mystery-solving game, something like what The Outer Wilds does would work really well. Because it gets you interested in the lore and also helps inform how you play the game.
Yes.
But if you're doing something that's more linear, then you can present lore a different way.
Okay.
Like maybe diary entries along the way that are in locations you have to stop at.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're doing like games like World of Warcraft, for instance, the lore is kind of just set dressing at that point, and that can be okay too. But make it accessible. Getting a quest from lore, or getting like a location in the lore where you can go, and you wouldn't know this is there otherwise, like the treasure maps in Skyrim.
Oh, yeah, the treasure maps in Skyrim, or
It's
even
like-
in Assassin's Creed. A lot of those will have the treasure maps for, like, Black Flag or Rogue, where you're going around those islands, and they're the only ways that you find the treasure.
Something like that's fine. Those aren't even really heavy with lore, but it's just like something you have to interact with and like pay attention to.
Right. There are quests like the Dead Money expansion, where you have to specifically tune into a radio station in order to find out about the casino, you know, and that leads you on the quest. That's a whole other expansion to the game. As long as it enhances the experience, I don't mind. The problem that I think we were addressing in the first one is when you have a wall of text presented to you that has really nothing to do that's going to transcend the experience you were already going to have in the game. If I'm just going along my game, and then I see this giant wall of text, and it doesn't change anything about how I'm addressing the game, then that wall of text for me in that moment was pointless. It didn't do anything, and I probably didn't read it in the first place. And then if it turns out that it was important, I just saw a wall of text. So, so trying to keep things moving while you're giving that lore is really important, and trying to make it a little bit more bite-sized and make it meaningful to the actual play experience. When we were talking about Outer Wilds is one of those games where those lore pieces are directly related to how you're going to address the game, and that's why it works in that case.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, it does not take long for that to get too heavy-handed. If anyone has some examples of the best or worst examples that you can give about lore dumps, please let us know either by our Discord channel, which is public, or you can leave comments down below. Finally on the show, Alex, I wanted to talk to you about a bit of a trope that I reminded myself of when I played a game recently. I was playing Plague Tale Requiem, which is a game that is a follow-up to Innocence that came out back in 2019. And in that particular game, you play Amicia and her brother Hugo, and you're going through this land that is infested by a rat plague. And
Nice.
Always fun. The first game was very stealth heavy, and one of the things that you would do in order to, make the stealth work is you had a sling with a rock and all sorts of fun stuff, and you'd uncover different kinds of special alchemical ingredients that you could use, thanks to your alchemist friend Lucas. And so you could set things on fire or extinguish fires, etc., so that you could move rats around the board because they hate fire. A whole bunch of different things like that. Well, I noticed something very quickly when I started playing Requiem, which is that you don't really have any of that at the start of the game. You're going along this path, having, survived the events of the first game, and you and Hugo go in basically to train a little bit, get used to the actual sling mechanics, which I understand that part. I mean, if people didn't play the first game, you need to understand the sling and how that works. But you don't have any of those other, alchemical things at the start of the game. You uncover them when Lucas, comes up with them again. With new ingredients, I guess, that you get. And it got me to thinking about a phenomenon I've seen in games called, I'm gonna call it this, stupid sequel brain. which is basically when your character just doesn't remember things that they could do previously. They just don't have the skills, abilities, or memory of things that existed before.
Yeah.
This unfortunately also happened to me with another game I played recently, Slime Rancher 2.
Oh, yeah.
Slime Rancher 2, which is a very good game, granted, and the first one is as well, but one thing I did notice is that any of the slimes that you might have encountered as Beatrix in the first game, you don't have entries for in the second game, and then when you uncover them in the second game, your entries all unlock again, and you have to find out about them again, and how they operate again, and they're the same slimes. The new ones I could understand, but any of the existing ones, you don't have those entries. After we establish at the very beginning that Beatrix totally understood and explored the far, far away range, you know? We've conquered that. Oh, here's a new island for you to explore. Terrific. I have no entry logs of any of the slimes, even the ones that I'm already encountered from the far, far range that I had already explored. And it just got me to thinking about all those times when the characters just, for some reason, don't know things that they should absolutely know. I think it's a problem with how sequels have to still give you the same kind of progression as the original game, and they don't want to give you too much out of the gate for people who are playing the new one, but at the same time creates this inconsistency of what your character knows and what your character does compared to the previous entries. Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I've played God of War before.
Oh, then yes.
For instance, you know, you definitely go through and lose your powers as a god, I think in the second God of War.
Mm-hmm.
You start off with this huge thing, and then, like, right in the beginning, tutorial thing, it's like you have all your powers, and then you lose them. I know .hack GU, for instance, I know you've not played this one. You start the game as a high-level character, you don't get to really do much, and then the game's like, you know what we're gonna do? Back to level 1. You know?
Oh, they just take away all of your powers. That's another thing I've seen, yeah.
I feel like if games wanted to more readily do the not forgetting of all the things, but continue with, like, characters from this original game, like the source material, you could easily do that as, like, a large DLC expansion.
Oh, sure.
And not its own title, and get away with it, because then it's like, alright, you've already done all this. So if you want, we can then do this. And either find a reason that you've lost these things, like maybe there's new ingredients you need for this stuff, like in Plague Tale Requiem.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, like, something happened and you actually got hit on the head, or you are whatever. But, like, if you're gonna do another complete game, you could just do Plague Tale Requiem with different protagonists.
Yeah, I think the problem was that the story for Amicia and Hugo is directly tied in this one to the first one, because Hugo, for people who are not aware of the game, is kind of integral to what's going on with the plague, so they kind of have to keep going with that. But it does also do that thing where, like, you know, we had the plague, we thought we cured it. Uh-oh, it's back. It's back now, and we've got to figure out what we're going to do about it, and hopefully save Hugo's life in the process. Now we got to go on a whole new journey. Don't worry, folks, it's going to be fine. One of the things that kept coming up in my mind was Metroid, because in similar fashion to, like, God of War, they try to justify the reason why in every game you just don't have your abilities. Like, in God of War 2, what was it? That you go into the Sea of Souls or something, like, soon into the game, and it, like, saps all of the powers that you had from the first one, and then you have to reacquire them. In Metroid, they do something similar, where Samus, like, would land on a planet. This is what they did with Prime to make it make sense. The ship crashes, and all of her stuff just goes offline, and you have to work on reacquiring everything. However, in entries like Other M, she actually has all of that, but she's not allowed to use it because her former commanding officer told her don't use them. So she didn't use them. That doesn't make much sense. I have the abilities at my fingertips to do that, and then they said, well, actually, you're just not going to use them this time until I think that it's necessary for protocol. That game always got me for that very reason. It's like, okay, you're not even part of this organization anymore, Samus. Just do what you need to do to stop the Metroids. Either you leave enough space so that the sequel is able to just expand upon the existing movesets and abilities that you had before, or you do what a lot of games will do, and you start with whole new protagonists or storyline that take place in that world. In the Borderlands series, for instance, the characters are all still there from previous games, but you don't play them.
Right.
You play the new Vault Hunters that are coming up and part of the story. And so you don't have to worry about that progress. It would be weird if, for instance, you ended up playing Lilith, and Lilith was the central character that you could play for each entry, because by the time you get through the end of Borderlands 1, you're already the Phoenix. And so when 2 starts, where do you go from there? You're already, like, the most powerful siren on the planet. There's not much you can do past that. I would love to be able to say, though, that you could do that with a lot of series, but in the ones that I was mentioning before, like Plague Tale, like Tomb Raider, like Metroid, there's more or less a centralized character that the series is based around. You can't really just say, oh, actually, Joe, the Metroid Hunter, is the new character. The series is tied to the character themselves.
Right. I think for Metroid, you could easily just be like, your suit was damaged.
Yeah, which is what they usually would do, like in the Prime ones, at least. I don't know about Super Metroid. But, yeah, the suit was damaged. That's fine. There can be a justification as to why you don't know things, but I do find it a little bit harder when the justification is, I don't know. Sorry, Beatrix LeBeau. You just, don't have any entries to the slimes. You apparently didn't know about them. It would have been kind of cool, though, if you had, like, all of these entries for the slimes that you encountered, and then you'd be like, oh, they're also here. They're also in, like, the Rainbow Islands. That would be neat. But they didn't do that. I think it's the reason why, in a lot of these big epic RPGs, they don't keep a central protagonist. Like through Fallout or Elder Scrolls or anything like that, you always start with like new characters that have fresh storylines. Because if you think about it, imagine if you went through Fallout 3, New Vegas, 4, all of that as just Vault 101.
See, the issue with that is then you'd need to be moving around a lot.
You certainly would. You'd keep traversing different areas of the country. You'd be going on caravans constantly.
I mean, that'd be interesting too, because then you could just be a wandering legend of the wastelands.
You could be the chosen one, or the original Vault Dweller from the first game, and just wander through all of the different iterations. Side note, there was actually a mod that they did that allowed you to have one integrated game for both New Vegas and 3. So you could play it all together, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And they also did something in 4 where there was a mod that lets you basically transport yourself to the New Vegas area in the time frame of 4, so it's after all the events of the actual New Vegas game. I feel like there's a lot of series that just need to have that one central character to tell the story over multiple games. Oh, that's actually probably a good example, is Mass Effect. Mass Effect actually specifically has Shepard in the games over the course of 3 games, and the events that you do in 1 have to directly relate to the second one, directly relate to the third.
Right.
But your progression systems in each one of those games is separated. You know, your progress in terms of the mechanical part of that is different in 2, is different in 3 from the first one. So you're still gonna start at level 1 in each one of those games.
On the flip side, as I was talking about .heck.gu, where you get this thing where you are immediately leveled down. But it doesn't really affect you. It's more of a story thing. It's just, you were this powerful, and now you're not this powerful. You don't get to do like any fights or anything while you're that powerful right then at the beginning. Unlike God of War, which takes away all the power after you've gotten a taste of using it. What they do let you do through the 4 games is continue your save data.
Oh, okay.
It's not just telling another story starting from the beginning. It's telling you a continuation of the story, and they're letting you import the old character at the level with all the equipment they had.
Yeah.
So they have all the abilities they had before. And if you don't want to do that, you can start a new character in the second game without playing the first game.
Something that gets overlooked a lot is the idea that what you do in the second game has a direct correlation to the first one, and if you're continuing a character's story, that to some degree the knowledge or the character growth that they had in the first game should be able to translate over. So it's just weird when you see that, like, well, I just don't know a bunch of things that I knew before. I don't have the upgrades I had in the first game. Why don't I? I used to be able to carry 100 of these items in a stack, and now I can carry 20 again.
Right.
Why? Did the character play their own game before the sequel?
Not the person with amnesia.
Yeah, I guess you could just do amnesia. Just have everybody get amnesia at the beginning of the game.
Perfect.
We solved...
I have amnesia right now.
Who are you?
I don't know.
Perfect. Anyway, if you remember what we were talking about, and you have some thoughts on Stupid Sequel Brain, please let us know in the comments down below, and we will continue the conversation over on Discord or on our social media channels. So,
if we can remember it.
We have no character growth through any of these, so we're bad.
No, even a little bit.
We have 0 character growth. Alright.
Just the way I like it.
Alright, so this has been an episode of Total Pebble Knockdown. Thank you for joining us. Alex, if folks wanted to remember or have amnesia about previous episodes of the show, where could they go to refresh their memory?
You can go to TotalPebbleKnockdown.com.
When you go there, if you do have any amnesia about what we've done on the show, all the episodes are luckily up there. You can also go to our Patreon, and you can look at all of the extra content that even people listening to the show might not know about or have forgotten already. You can also find our other projects over there, and if you would like to follow us along on social media, I am at Citanium.
I am at EXP Limited, and our show is over at Pebble Knockdown.
So you can feel free to see us over there, and every podcast app known to mankind is where you can find us. Please rate and review on the platforms where that is applicable. And of course, check out our YouTube channel, because we do these in segments in video form, which is, I feel like, where most people are actually looking at this point. Thank you for that. We're always impressed that people came by.
Usually.
Yeah, usually.
When are we recording this?
When are we recording this? Who are we?
Who are we? Who are we? Yes.
Is this real life?
No, it's just fantasy.
Caught in a landslide?
No, that's illegal.
No escape from reality? Anyway, before we do all the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody, thank you for joining us on this episode, and we will see you on the next one. Listen, easy come, easy go. Any way the wind blows.
Doesn't really matter. Let's get out of here.
Bye.
Bye.